Welcome to the C Analysis podcast. I'm your host, Chaz, the director of C Analysis. Today, we have Ben Forstate on to go over the most competitive districts in the Pennsylvania legislature. And when I say the most competitive, these are the races that are rated as lean, tilt, or toss-up. That is to make sure this is not too long of a podcast. Because there are many districts in Pennsylvania and there are a good amount of competition, more districts in the likely and very likely categories. So we're just going to go over the most competitive races in each chamber. Ben, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Chaz.
And I do want to have a little disclaimer at the beginning of this. Ben is someone who works in Democratic campaigns. He's currently a campaign manager for one of the Pennsylvania House districts. So you'll get to hear Ben's rating and my rating. Ben knows Pennsylvania much better than me, though, and it's such a privilege to have him on.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, let's get right into it. We're
Sure.
gonna go by region, and we're gonna go with the Pennsylvania House to start. We're going to start in northeastern Pennsylvania in District 118. This is a open district in the Scranton area, and you've got several candidates on both sides running. We have this as a tilt Republican district. How do you see this race, Ben?
I really think it's going to depend on the political environment. I see it as a little bit more of a toss-up. I'm not super clear. This is one of those races where I'm not super clear on the candidates on either side, but it takes in some areas that still have some Democratic strength down ballot, like Pittston in Luzerne County, where actually, half of my family is from, in the Wyoming County. And then some areas that are a little bit more conservative up in Lackawanna County. So it's going to be a tough race. It voted for Donald Trump, but it's one that Democrats really need to hold if they want to take the House. That's like a lot of the districts up in NEPA have some Democratic strength down ballot, but are increasingly voting for Republicans at the top. So we'll see how far down that has gotten this cycle.
All right. And then the next district. Oh, and by the way, so you said you see this as a toss-up, right?
Toss-up right now.
Okay. All right. And then same area, in Eddie Pashinsky's district.
Eddie Day.
Huh?
Eddie Day.
Eddie Day?
Eddie Day Pashinsky.
Eddie Day Pashinsky. Well, I'll make a note of that and I'll fix that in our sheet. Well, it's District 121. We have this as lean Democratic. Now, I do believe he went uncontested in 2020, if I've got that right. So we don't know how well he would have done in 2020. So he hasn't faced a Republican since 2018. But yeah, how do you see this race?
Well, this is the city of Wilkes-Barre. That is where my mom is from, and I've spent a lot of time there. And this is probably, of the seats in Luzerne County, the one with the most Democratic strength at the top of the ballot. This is the county seat. And it depends on how bad the environment is, but he has faced Republicans in the past. This is not like a Democratic seat that has gone uncontested for years, although he did pick up some more conservative territory in redistricting. So it might be somewhat of a fight, but I do see it as lean Democratic.
Okay. Well, we agree on that one. Let's go to the Philadelphia suburbs then. Let's start with District 26. GOP incumbent Tim Hennessy is running for re-election, but we've got his race as tilt Democratic for a flip for the Democrats. He's going up against Democrat Paul Friel. Ben, how do you see this race?
So this was a district that was changed quite a bit in redistricting. It went from a more of a Western Chester County district on the border with Berks to picking up more Democratic territory along the Schuylkill River Valley. So specifically Phoenixville, which is a city that has been, redeveloping with a lot of breweries and a lot of younger families moving in. And that shifted it quite a bit to the left I think that this is going to be one of the Democrats' flips, and I agree with you on Tilt D there.
All right. And then District 74, we have this as lean Democratic. Democratic incumbent Dan Williams is running for re-election against Republican Dale Hensel. Ben, how do you see this race?
Again, I'm going to agree with you on lean D. This is another seat that was changed in redistricting. Dan Williams represented the very Democratic city of Coatesville in Chester County, but he picked up some more conservative rural areas along the border with Lancaster County, Lancaster. And it's one of those ones that is going to be determined by the environment, how close, but it should be one that Democrats hold.
All right. And then we're going to go to 151 next with, I believe he is the top overperformer in the Pennsylvania House. He has won very, very blue territory before. And he has an even bluer district now, I believe.
Yeah.
And this is Todd Stevens I'm talking about, running for re-election against Democrat Melissa Carato, I believe. Serrato.
Maybe.
One of the two.
Yeah, one of the two.
Yeah, so how do you see this? We've got this pegged at a lean Republican.
I would put it at Tilt R. He picked up some blue territory in Upper Dublin. That's a little bit closer to the city of Philadelphia than anywhere he's represented previously. But it is going to be a tough district for Democrats. They've fielded some good candidates in very Democratic years in the last version of this district and weren't able to pick up Todd Stevens, but there really is no path to the majority without picking up seats like his. So they're going to throw quite a bit at him this cycle. He represents the municipality of Horsham on the border with Bucks County. And that is one of the more conservative municipalities closer to Philadelphia. And that has been his base. It was kept whole in redistricting. And I think they appreciate the work that he has done there for, there's been a lot of soil contamination from a former Air Force base in that district. That has been an issue. I know that has been something that he has worked very closely on. And I think he's able to win a lot of crossover support from that municipality specifically. So we're going to see. It's going to be a tough race.
All right. And then another district where you have a major Republican overperformer is District 168. We have this one as a toss-up. Christopher Quinn, Republican incumbent, is running for re-election against Lisa Borowski.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So this is one of those ones where you and I disagreed, and we were talking briefly before the episode. I actually see this one as like a Tilt D, another pickup. In that the former version of this district mostly was contained within Delaware County and picked up a lot of conservative areas of Delaware, like Springfield. They've kind of stretched it out now along the border with Chester County. And it picks up Radnor, which is on the main line and has gone very Democratic post-Trump. And I think it's going to be wholly new to his district. So Lisa Borowski, if I'm understanding correctly, is from Radnor, maybe on their municipal council, and is well liked there. I think that this is going to be one of those ones where redistricting really put him on the back foot and Democrats will pick it up. So I have it as Tilt D. He is an overperformer, though.
All right. And then our last Philadelphia suburbs district in the House is District 173. We have this as lean Democratic. The Republicans have Catherine Bohr running as their nominee. And then you've got a Democratic primary here for this seat.
So I don't have a lot of insight on the Democratic primary here, but it is in the city of Philadelphia, in Northeast Philadelphia along the Delaware River, and kind of on the border with Bensalem and Bucks. So this is going to be an area of Philadelphia that's a little bit more conservative, but it should be a Democratic hold.
All right. And then let's go over to Western Pennsylvania. We're going to start with District 2, and that's in Erie.
Sure.
That is rated as lean Democratic in our ratings. Democrat Robert Mirsky is running for re-election against Republican Paul Pitoniak. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Ben, how do you see this race?
Another one. I agree with you, Chaz. Lean D. Rob Murski was more contained within the city of Erie last time, his district, but he's had to pick up a lot of suburbs to the west. Erie lost quite a bit of population. The Northwest in general lost a lot of population in the last redistricting cycle, or last 10 years. And Rob Murski picked up some more conservative suburbs, and it's going to be a little bit more of a battle for him, but he does have portions of the city of Erie, which have maintained, a very good Democratic lean. So I think this will be one that Democrats hold on to.
All right. And then going down south into very Republican territory, where you have a major Democratic overperformer in Democratic incumbent Chris Sainato. And he's running for re-election. This is a tilt Democratic seat. What town it mainly has?
This is Newcastle. This is Newcastle. And one of the fascinating, fun facts about this district, it has had the least turnover of any state house district in Pennsylvania since we moved to single districts in 1966. There's only been 2 representatives for HD9 in the history of this district. I can't remember the first representative's name, but Chris Nainato took it over, and that's been it.
So he's been there for quite a while.
And that is one of the reasons he's been able to hold on to the seat as it's gotten more and more conservative, and the city of Newcastle has made up, a far smaller proportion of the district. He's gotten lucky in a few cycles where he's had like third-party candidates siphon off votes. He won with Trump on the ballot as Democrats have started to collapse in Lawrence County. So this is going to be a fascinating race to watch. And should Democrats take the House, he might actually be one of the most powerful legislators in the state.
How do you see this race with the rating?
I actually have it as toss-up right now, but am willing to change it. So it's one where I'm actually to the right of you.
Yeah. And another looking at his overperformance last time, it's very impressive. So I've got him as a very soft favorite, but I do think that Republicans aren't going to let up on him this cycle, and I think they're going to pour a good amount of money into this seat, and that may put it to the toss-up column.
I agree. I know that he does like a lot. He does a lot of focus on constituent service. And I think that is like what allows Pennsylvania has 203 state house districts. They're very small in a lot of places. It's easy to meet most of the people in your district. And Chris, I know, focuses a lot on constituent service. I know he calls residents on their birthday, just to give you an example. So that is like one of the things that have allowed a lot of these more rural Democrats to hang on until they retired, is that the small size of our districts, the ability to actually meet a lot of the residents and to do a lot of work on the ground.
Well, he sounds like a master of retail politics, and it sounds like Republicans are not going to have an easy time beating him, even though this is a Trump plus 20 something district, I think.
Sure.
But yeah. All right. Well, let's go on to Beaver County, District 16. This is west of Pittsburgh. You have Robert Matsey, the Democratic incumbent, running for re-election against Republican Rico Elmore. Again, we have this as lean Democratic. Ben, how do you see this?
Lean Dem. This is Rob Matsey represents some of the remaining Democratic areas in Beaver County and the Beaver Valley. So that's Ambridge, Aliquippa. I think he picked up some areas to the north, closer to Beaver Falls, Rochester. These are some of those areas that are, again, still Democratic down ballot. For Pittsburgh's outer counties, Aliquippa has somewhat like of a Black population too, which provides like a Democratic base for this district that's missing from like a lot of other more rural Democratic districts in Western Pennsylvania. So he's done a really good job in, again, doing a lot of constituent outreach and representing his district well. And I think he'll hold on there.
All right. And then let's go into Allegheny County itself. We got 2 toss-up districts, and both of them are open, I believe, aren't they? and
Yes.
33. Yeah. So
Am I allowed to pass on 30?
yeah. So you are the campaign manager for 30. So I'll let you skip that one. Because
I will agree with it. I will agree with you that it is toss up.
I'm sure you do. It's good for fundraising.
It really is.
But yeah, and then well, let's go on to 33 then. You got the Republicans nominating Theodore Thompson, and then you got a Democratic primary here. This is in the old minority leader's seat, or the equivalent of it.
Sure.
It was an upset in 2020 that this flipped. How do you see this race?
So it wasn't a total upset. I was kind of predicting that Republicans would take this seat within the near future. This is actually my home district. This is where I grew up in 33 in the Allegheny Valley. It changed quite a bit in redistricting and took in my home school district, the Fox Chapel area, which is relatively affluent and is trending Democratic. And you have this is a really fascinating district. And I think it's one to watch to look at the dynamics of like Pennsylvania, kind of like writ large in a single district. About 52% of the population now is in the Fox Chapel area school district. 48% of it is in the Allegheny Valley. The Allegheny Valley was one of the most Democratic areas in Allegheny County through the 80s. And now it's trending hard to the right. The Fox Chapel area, for the most part, was pretty Republican for the same period. It is now trending pretty hard left. So you have those two areas in one district now kind of pooling against each other. And right now, it's had a narrow Democratic lean. It voted for Hillary Clinton and then Joe Biden. Hillary Clinton very narrowly, Joe Biden a little less narrowly. But like, if you want to watch one district in the state to think about, like Pennsylvania as a commonwealth, I would say it's 33.
All right. And then finally, for our last House district is in central Pennsylvania. You have a toss-up district in District 82. Republican nominee Justin Behrens versus Democratic candidate Paul Takak. I hope I'm pronouncing that name right. So you got the two of them, and Behrens just got, he's officially going to be on the ballot. There is a residency challenge to him, and the court has ruled that he will be able to be on the ballot. That being said, it still will be an issue in the campaign where, he'll be called a carpetbagger. And he's coming all the way from Luzerne County in northeast Pennsylvania. So it's quite a hike he's made for himself here in coming to this seat and being the nominee. We've got this as a toss-up. Ben, how do you see this race?
I would see it as maybe lean Democratic. It's got half of center of State College, which is where Penn State is, and some of the suburbs around State College, which are trending very hard left, especially post-Trump. I think a factor, and to some extent we'll see how it plays here in Pennsylvania politics, is that our state tends to be very localized based on regions and even municipalities. And I know I've knocked on doors for candidates, and some of the first questions have been, where were they born? Where did they grow up? Did they grow up in the district? Even if the district lines have changed recently, that is often a first question. So I really do think that, like, carpetbagging or people moving from out of the state, just to reference our Senate race, is like a real factor in races here in Pennsylvania. So it's going to come up, and he's probably going to hear that a lot from people, even if, that challenge was dismissed and he's allowed to be on the ballot.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we get into the Senate, I do want to note, with 68 and 82, those are races where I could see it moving leftward. I think if you asked me today to eliminate those toss-ups, I would feel reasonably comfortable with having them as Democratic pickups. But it's just a little bit too close right now, and I kind of want the races to develop. But when it comes to 30 and 33, those are ones I'm going to have a real tough time doing. But yeah, we'll stick with us before we move on to the Pennsylvania State Senate and the districts that are up this year in this very likely Republican chamber. The Pennsylvania House, by the way, I should have noted, we have that as a likely Republican chamber at the moment. But yeah, stick with us. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Now let's get right into the Pennsylvania State Senate districts. Again, we have the Pennsylvania State Senate as a very likely Republican chamber. It has staggered terms, so some of the seats won't be up until 2024. And there are some Democratic pickup opportunities for the Democratic Party in 2024, especially I know in the capital, Harrisburg. That district, I think, is a great Democratic pickup opportunity for Democrats. There's going to be more competition in 2024. But so we're just going to go over the toss-up, tilt, and lean districts up in 2022. So let's get right into it. Let's go with the toss-up district, the only toss-up district we have in the Pennsylvania Senate, in the Lehigh Valley. It's an open district, District 14. Ben, what's your take on this?
Sure. So the 14th was a pretty interesting Senate district. It used to be represented by the only independent in the state Senate. That was Senator Utachak. And it was all the area from Wilkes-Barre and Luzerne County down to Carbon County. It was actually moved during redistricting to Lehigh and Northampton counties in the Lehigh Valley. And it's like ostensibly an Allentown district, but it actually carved up the city of Allentown. This is the first time Allentown has ever been split in redistricting. Part of the city was essentially carved out to give incumbent Senator Pat Brown in the 16th district his own seat, his own more conservative seat, and to carve out some of the more liberal parts of the county into its own district. It stretches from Allentown and some of its suburbs all the way north to the Slate Belt, which is like kind of a former mining area in the northern part of the county. So you have those two parts of very different areas competing against each other for Senate. And I know they have competitive primaries. I'm not entirely sure who the candidates are, but it's going to be interesting to see, how those dynamics again play out. And that's a case in a lot of districts in Pennsylvania where you have these very liberal cities and their immediate suburbs competing against more rural or even more like formerly industrial areas. And there's a lot of tension there. So we'll see that in the state Senate district. We'll see it in House District 33 in Allegheny County, even in House District 82 in Central PA.
All right. And then District 18, that's the other district in the Lehigh Valley. You have Democrat Lisa Boscola running for re-election against John Murr. Ooh, this is a hard one. Murhoughton. Let's go with Murhoughton. Let's go with that.
Yeah, let's try that.
It's Merhottein. We have this as a tilt Democratic district. Ben, how do you see this race?
Again, another one actually where you have rural areas that are pretty conservative. The Slate Belt, again, in northern Northampton County, I think like Bangor in some of those areas, versus the city of Bethlehem, which is very liberal. And Lisa Boscola's previous district actually took in some more liberal areas, I think in Lehigh County, that were removed from her district and made it more conservative. But she is a little bit more conservative of a Democrat, and she's an incumbent and has done a pretty good job representing this area. So I think she'll hold on. I would say tilt to lean to E.
All right. And then let's go on to northeastern Pennsylvania. We got District 40. This is an open district. We have it as lean Republican. And we have Republican nominee Rosemary Brown versus Democrat Jennifer Shikaitis. Thank you. I was going to struggle with that one.
Yeah.
Ben, how do you see this race?
I actually, I really want to say it's more of a tilt R, but I do think lean R is right. This is a district that is all of Monroe County, which is an interesting county for Pennsylvania in that it has become blue, mostly because of New York expats moving into the Poconos. And then in this version of the district, and it changed a lot from the preliminary maps to the final maps, actually is all of Monroe County, and then takes in some of the more rural portions of Lackawanna County, where Scranton is, and Wayne County in the Poconos. And Rosemary Brown is one of those, is a more moderate Republican who has held on in a district that voted for Joe Biden and for Tom Wolf. I think it voted for Trump in 2016, but, I'd have to check on that one. But, it was a district that Democrats had beat their head against the wall trying to flip and haven't been able to. I think, Rosemary Brown was the best candidate they could have picked to run here. She's going to be a formidable opponent. But I am told that Jennifer Shakaitis, either her or her mom is very well known in the area for doing a lot around environmental work, which is very important up in the Poconos. This is an area that has grown mostly because of people moving out to like country homes and wanting to be in a lot of nature. I think that's actually going to be like a pretty important plank to run on, especially as this area. And again, this is like kind of tangential, but like this area is very interesting for Pennsylvania because it is a rural area that could be trending towards Democrats post-pandemic, with a lot of New Yorkers moving there and buying second homes or, telecommuting. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in this district over time.
All right. And then let's get into the Philadelphia suburbs. We got 4 districts here. Let's start with District 6. We have this as the lean Republican. It's an open district. Ben, what's your take?
So Chaz, I want to talk about this 6 in the next district you have on here, 10 together. They're both completely contained within Bucks County. 6 takes in some of the exurbs really close to the city of Philadelphia. 10 takes in also some of the, suburbs, exurbs, also close in Bucks County, but they're 2 very different districts in terms of like socioeconomic, status. And there's just I really think we talk about Bucks as one of being Pennsylvania's most competitive, unique counties. So 6 is Frank Ferry versus Anne Marie Mitchell. That is the suburbs really close to the city of Philadelphia along the border with Montgomery in the city. So that's Bensalem, North and South Northampton, and Lower Southampton. Some of these suburbs are a little bit more conservative, heavily Catholic. There are also a lot of areas where like cops are moving out of the city too. And it's an area that had formerly maybe a little bit more of a Democrat lean and has become more Republican. Frank Ferry is, we would call him like a labor Republican who has some support from labor groups. And he's going to be a really tough Republican to beat. But Anne Marie Mitchell, I think, is going to be a good candidate. It's I would say it's lean R. Steve Santorcero actually ran against the current Republican representative Fitzpatrick in, I think, 2016, and then won the Senate seat in 2018. And his district became bluer. It takes in most of the Democratic in portions of Bucks County and is becoming bluer, but it's still a moderate district. So, we have the kind of the mirror image of each other just contained within one county. So those seats are going to, probably maintain their current partisanship.
All right. Let's go on to the last open seat we have here. We still have 2 more districts after this. But this is the last open district. This is District 24. You've got primaries on both sides here. Ben, what's your take on this seat?
So I know that one of the candidates for the Republican, nominee is, I cannot pronounce her last name. It's Pennychuk probably, and this is a seat that is in outer Montgomery County and kind of like portions of Berks County closer to the border with Montgomery. And it's a seat that narrowly voted for Biden. I expect this to be competitive. And it's one of those districts that possibly a Republican will hold now. And then depending on population growth, et cetera, it could be very competitive within the next midterm cycle.
All right. Let's go on to the last Philadelphia suburbs seat. That's District 44. We have this as lean Democrat. Democratic incumbent Katie Muth, or is it Muth? Muth. Katie Muth is running for re-election against Republican nominee Jessica Florio.
Sure. So that's portions of Chester County, Chesco, portions of Montgomery County along the Schuylkill Valley, and then a little bit of Berks, I think, still. This is a district that became a little bluer in redistricting. Katie Muth, was an upset win against an incumbent last time in a district that had historically been very Republican leaning, and I think has really made a name for herself as an outspoken, Democrat on a lot of issues. And I think she's a really strong incumbent, and she'll hold this district.
All right. Last district here is out in Western Pennsylvania.
My home district.
District 38. Lindsey Williams is running for re-election. The GOP still has a primary here. This is in Allegheny County. Ben, how do you see this seat?
Yeah, my home district. And I'm biased. I'm a big fan of Lindsey Williams. She's been a great state senator. She's worked really hard. She had a very close win in 2018 against Republican Jeremy Schaefer, who is now running for Congress in Connor Lamb's former seat. She won, I think, by 700 votes. This was a district that was designed in 2014 to take out a Democratic incumbent by putting his home in the city of Pittsburgh, with Pittsburgh's formerly pretty conservative North Hills suburbs where I grew up. It kind of backfired in 2018 when those suburbs turned blue and the portion of the city of Pittsburgh voted overwhelmingly. There were precincts where the Republican received like 1 or 2 votes for Democrats. So it kind of backfired when all of that came together in 2018. Lindsey picked up another ward within the city of Pittsburgh that contains some very Democratic areas. And her likely opponent is my current or former state rep, where I grew up, Lori Mizgorski, who ran in HD 30. And, it's one of those dynamics where portions of the district are trending very Democratic. And I just don't see, like in 2018, the Republican really effectively competing in the portions of the city of Pittsburgh. This is a district that I think is, tilt lean D. And it's really going to depend on turnout. We have really contested races for governor and Senate and state Senate and even state reps in portions of this district. And if turnout is high enough, I can't see the Republican overcoming that.
All right. Well, and yeah, I don't remember if we talked about our rating for it, but it is I agree with you. We've got it as tilt Democratic right now. All right. Well, that just about wraps up every highly competitive district in each chamber. Ben, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.